I don't believe in saints. They never make mistakes. I know it's not my place. Who am I to tell you that you need to change?
This is really moody for laundry music.
Should I share like the actual video? Yeah, that's pretty.
Her closet's such a mess,
Oh, there we go.
filled up with all the skeletons she's kept. Nobody's perfect architects.
All right, that's enough.
Brilliant. Well, are we good to go, you think?
Yeah.
All right. Well, hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us and spend some time learning how to condo your HubSpot portal. Today, I have with me the usual suspects, Lital and myself. Michael, unfortunately, couldn't join, but most importantly, our special guest, Savannah from HubSpot. She runs customer success, takes care of a lot of cool customers, and she's going to be here to help us walk through the best way to attack cleaning your HubSpot portal, and from beginning to end. And this is just a reminder, this is being recorded, and as per usual, we will send out the deck so you won't have to focus on trying to take notes. And you can join us and participate. Now, as we always do, here's our little icebreaker. All messes are welcome. What is the messiest part of your HubSpot portal? And shout it out, chat it out. This is a safe space. You are among friends, no judgment.
Files and images.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, workflows. I will tell you that I've dealt with that. I have a client with over 300 workflows and they're not using 200 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Yep, workflows. I'm assuming lists. Yep, there we go. Context and deal properties. I mean, this same company has about 2,000 duplicates in their contact database, just sitting there waiting for someone to do something with them. And the lists, has anybody else had issue with lists? I find that the lists get created willy-nilly and then they get put aside, and sometimes there's only 2 contacts in the list. Yeah, David, cool. You know my pain.
I think that's one of the scariest things I can hear from one of my customers is, I don't know what would happen if I was out sick or if I left tomorrow. I mean, I absolutely want everybody to stay in their job and be healthy, but when they say that, it tells me that their lists or their workflows aren't clearly labeled enough with a naming convention or with intent. So that's intention. They're like, I know what these are for, but if nobody else knows, that's a problem.
That's a big problem. But those are the big ones. And then one other one, I don't know if anybody else has this issue, are landing pages. I mean, we'd be whipping them out, repurposing, recycling, copying, and recontenting. I mean, I think this client had like over 200 lists or landing pages connected to over 100 campaigns. And when we did the audit, there was some of them were empty. Why is it still turned on? So cool. Appreciate you guys. Lead scoring rules. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Oh, Bethany, this is definitely going to be an educational moment for you. You just took over a new instance. Oof. Lead scoring rules. I agree with you. You ever had any experience there, Lital?
Sorry, I had to check if I was muted. Yeah, lead scoring rules are something that you constantly have to revisit, and when you don't, they pile up like my kids' laundry.
Nice touch. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing, everyone. So let me launch into the agenda and give you an idea of what's going to happen here. So with any good cleaning, it's important to take a step back and plan, right? So we want to know where to start, what should our goals be, and how do we prioritize the findings so we can keep the portal audit moving smoothly. So what you need to do is keep in mind that your database, obviously it's not static. Everything else is still moving in the background. Contacts are still being added from forms, workflows are still running, and fingers crossed deals are still closing. So what you have to do is accommodate where the database is now for you to where you want it to be in the future. That's your plan, right, of attack. So to start, what we're going to do is talk about exactly when you want to run the audit, because it can sneak up on you pretty quick and then you're just like, I don't even know how to begin. So once you've decided on where to start, you're going to get your cleaning supplies together and you're going to block off time in your calendar. You're going to set yourself a deadline and you're going to document the questions that you have that you want to ask of the data, before you start diving in. Because you might have an idea of how things are trending, but it's good to verbalize these assumptions and note them to yourself. You might find them to be true or you might not. So once you've set up this cleaning kit of tools and questions and the order of operation, it's time to start exploring. So at the end of this exercise, this webinar, you might have a running list of things you'd like to change. It's going to be impossible to change everything all at once. That's fine, but write it down. Then start with the low-hanging fruit, as per usual. Take notice of how the data might shift as you wait to execute on the other parts, and then work your way down the line of your list. And that is how we're going to tackle this webinar.
Yes. And I just want to say, as we always do, I think we have some newcomers here with us today. So if you have a question at any point during the presentation, feel free to unmute yourself. If anybody would like to go on video, we'd love to see your faces. But feel free to unmute yourself or ask, or if you feel more comfortable throwing it in the chat, we'll be monitoring that as well. So here we go. So garbage in, garbage out, right? We've all heard the saying. It goes way back to the early days of computing. But these days, everybody's talking about data-backed decision-making. It's trending as a keyword. It's trending as a buzzword, but it's real, right? So imagine this scenario. Your CEO asks you how many leads a certain campaign generated, and your reports, similar to Dilbert's, show 87. So your CEO has a fit, makes you stop all activities related to that campaign, stamps it a failure, and then heads off the grid to safari in Africa. But your gut tells you something is wrong. It felt like that campaign went so well. So you do a little digging, you look at more reports, and you discover that one element of the campaign, a webinar, for example, was not tagged with the correct campaign. And so in the reports, you're not showing all the hundreds of leads that came in from the webinar, where in fact, it was your best campaign ever. So the problem with garbage in, garbage out is basing decision on bad data is worse than on no data at all, which is why it's important to clean up every once in a while. So that brings us to this, right? So portal audits, like everything we do, they take time and resources. And if you're like the rest of us, you don't have too much of either. So if you suspect bad data, how do you know if it's the right time and if it's going to be worth your time to do a portal audit? These are some of the cases we've come across and some of the flags. It doesn't mean this is always right. It's just something that should trigger something for you. So if you're inheriting a HubSpot account, like somebody wrote in the chat, they just did. Who was that? Bethany just took over a new instance. Good time to do a portal audit. If there's been a change in your company's strategy, or if you're about to release a new product or announce a new market, Big one for me is when sales, marketing, or both are not hitting their KPIs, especially when that's out of the ordinary. If they've been hitting and then missing by a lot, something might be funky with the data. If your teammates ask you questions about your data and you're not sure how to answer them, or even if you can answer them with the data you have, or if you find yourself spending more time working for the tool than the tool is working for you, big red flag. Savannah.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. And thanks for having me at today's hug. As Christina introduced, my name is Savannah Mozingo, and I'm a senior customer success manager over here at HubSpot, or working remotely for HubSpot. In my day-to-day, I work with a book of about 180 corporate customers to align their marketing and their sales strategies to best practices in their portal. So, portal audits are a regular part of that call, particularly getting towards the end of the year, halfway through the year. So I'm excited to be diving in. Now, Atul just told us when to perform an audit, and it's important next to know why. Before diving into the how of running an audit, you'll want to have an understanding of what exactly it is you want to drive the results of your portal audit towards improving or achieving. Knowing what your goals are ahead of starting your audit gives you a really important framework to tie your findings back to throughout the process. So obviously, right, let's start by getting key stakeholder buy-in. You don't want to waste your time. You want to start by asking department heads what their quarterly goals are. What are their annual goals? You want to make sure there's accurate input from leadership across each department of your org, so you can align gaps in sales tool usage, marketing tool usage, customer service, or contact management with high-level business objectives. Next, right, we want to align KPIs with goals. So in order to be most effective during your audit, remember to keep connecting that audit back to your broader KPIs. This is going to help us from falling down the rabbit hole of what if I changed X, Y, or Z, or it would be nice to have B, right? Ask, is your service team looking to handle more tickets per rep, for example? Then during your audit, focus on the time to close reports for—
Don't read slides to me.
What was that? And pay attention to the pages with the most chat conversion or the least chat conversion. So are your salespeople aiming to decrease their average follow-up times or time between when a contact becomes an SQL to a customer? Then you know that you want to pay attention to the workflows you do or don't have set up. So do you have a hot leads notification set up to send to owners when your contact revisits or when last activity date exceeds a given date range, things like that. And then of course, be real. Ask yourself what resources you have at your disposal, whether that be time. Of course, diving into your HubSpot portal findings can get very granular. So if you wind up creating a list of 1 million tasks, but there are only 2 people on your team, it's going to be unrealistic to expect you to tackle everything in a week, right? But if you have a larger team, you can delegate and tackle all the things you need to do for your audit. Now, as you uncover information during your audit, you'll want to hold it up to the questions you started here. Your audit's going to tell you where contacts aren't converting or where in the customer journey they're getting lost. But holding that up against your KPIs or the feedback from department heads is going to help you better prioritize your findings and help translate them from abstract data into stories. So armed with the information and insight you've gleaned from those internal interviews, I highly encourage my customers to first start with the growth grader exercise. Now, what the growth grader is not is a tool that combs your portal for you, right? It's not going to tell you that you have X number of lists or that you're not using Z tool. But what it does do is guide you through your thought process of, well, your processes. And at that end, you'll have, at the end of it, you're going to have custom created playbooks that do point out the HubSpot tools that can be best leveraged to execute and organize those processes. You'll answer a series of questions in that growth grader that assess your org's performance across the 3 phases of the flywheel, right? So attract, engage, and delight. And in regards to fighting internal friction. Now, once all the questions have been answered, you're going to receive an overall growth grade out of a possible 100 and scores for each phase of the flywheel. For each phase where you don't score 100, you receive 2 to 3 recommended playbooks to help you improve on that score. And you can add those playbooks to your growth plan. And each playbook, like I said, features a series of plays that include a list of resources, like ebooks, academy lessons, blogs, to help you carry that out. Again, great if you are wanting to delegate some work later on. You can check off plays as you complete them or delete them entirely if they're not going to be applicable to what you want. Now, I like to run the growth grader before diving into the portal itself because this is our chance to form a hypothesis. You might already have an idea of what is or isn't working because you're seeing that friction in your emails from the team or from your boss, and you're seeing it in your calendar that's packed with admin tasks and less creative time. Now, the growth grader can really help put that into perspective, right? It's something you can launch off of and into your data saying, okay, my attract phase is low. What will my portal audit reveal about contacts in that phase? Or, okay, my engage phase is low. Will my portal show that those contacts are engaging with my nurture emails?
I think that's a really good point. We have one client we're working with who was so against doing an audit, and he was like, I know it's not working. It doesn't matter which part is not working. None of it's working. And in doing the audit, we discovered that there actually were some pieces that were working. So it really helps kind of hone in on the pieces that need to be focused on.
Exactly. So you've uncovered your KPIs, you've got the buy-in, and now you're ready to start looking for the tools that you're not using. So you're ready to start clicking at this point. We do have one last important phase that we're going to be talking about a lot next, right? We need to confirm that hypothesis that your growth grader helped you form. Now, before going in and visiting each asset one at a time, deleting lists, deleting properties, creating new workflows, deleting old workflows, you need to separate the lights from the darks. We need to tell what's good and what's bad in your portal. Now, armed with your hypothesis and your growth grader, it's time to start diving into the data itself to make sure you're on the right track. Before we decide where we're going, we do need to know first, right, where we stand. Oftentimes, my customers want to start diving immediately into custom reports, and your girl, I love a good custom report, but that can really send us down a rabbit hole. So I really like to start off with the analytics tools and using the hyperlinks in those reports to dive into specific numbers. And then as we review the data, questions will naturally start to bubble up of, what pages were most popular, or why was this off-season month showing more traffic than an on-season month? Now, when you're looking at the analytics, take note of when you can't drill into the available report. This can be used in your customer journey mapping later. Think about the properties that you need to be able to filter on for such a report. And when you're doing a content audit, you can look to see if those properties are accessible today, or do they need to be created? So first, look at what's doing well and what's not doing well. Consider the best and the worst. You don't want to abandon your strengths just for the sake of focusing on weaknesses. If you have high organic traffic, give yourself a pat on the back and continue to keep an eye on your SEO. You're doing well there. But make a note to look at whether you're using pillar pages during your content audit, for example, tying into where you're performing well. If you have low paid search performance, cross-reference your paid search terms to your organic terms. If this number surprises you, check to see if your ads are connected to HubSpot. So we're already starting to uncover some things that maybe we assumed, but aren't actually true. Reevaluate how you address your poor performing areas, but don't forget about where you're already doing well. Do we have any questions so far?
Up to this point,
Oh,
we're just beginning to dip a toe. So if you don't have any questions, we'll move on. But again, chat is open.
awesome. So we can move to the next slide. So beyond just the sessions that we're driving from each source that we just saw in traffic analytics, we want to look at the conversion rate of each source as well. So if we have a low number of sessions, but a high conversion rate, we're looking at a prime area for improvement. If we have a high number of sessions with a low conversion rate, that's also going to be another area that's ripe for your content audit later on. Click on the source links here to explore which particular pages contacts are being driven to convert on. Ask yourself at this point if you know whether these pages indicate a customer that's top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Are you getting a lot of conversions, top of funnel pages, and none on the bottom? You should be able to see this and be able to think back to those departmental KPIs you surveyed from earlier. Maybe it was saving sales time. Was sales running a series of time-saving sequences that should have increased the number of sessions under direct traffic, and you're not seeing that? Did you have a UTM strategy in place to track those conversions? So again, this is really going to start to help you tie back what's actually happening in your data with what you thought was happening. So I would say leave low sessions and low conversion rate sources for a later project, because it takes a lot of energy to fight two uphill battles. Anybody else have trouble with conversions?
Probably, but probably too early to tackle.
Yeah.
There's no way that we don't. We all do.
Exactly. Conversion rates are telling us where a lot of contacts are or aren't coming in, so we love those. But it doesn't tell us how successful our follow-up processes are. The next logical question here, right, is going to be, did we leave any contact behind? Are there any leads with untapped potential that you have in your database? Think about all the work that your marketing team is doing to drive traffic through SEO, content creation, social promotion, email marketing that you're hoping gets forwarded and shared. Now, how frustrated are you going to be to look at dozens or maybe even hundreds of leads that you've brought in that are just slipping through the cracks? So here I have a custom contact report that can be filtered for create date is all time. Number of form submissions is greater than 0. So obviously somebody that converted, but last activity date is unknown or last contacted is unknown.
Does this report look familiar to anyone? Does anybody use this to analyze their lead flow? I'm gonna say no.
Sorry, I raised my hand. Yeah, and like Savannah said, I concur. So frustrating as a marketer when you work so hard to create these leads and then the alignment with the sales team, if they're qualified, is just not there and they don't do anything with them.
Oh, not quite there yet. Okay. Oh, you're waiting for your SDR. Oh, get them on your side, quick, fast, in a hurry.
So a similar report with a twist is going to be to look for contacts who came in your system, but who weren't reached out to in a reasonable amount of time. So we can really start to dive off from here by looking at where contacts are coming from. Did they not get tagged with the appropriate contact property to flag them or segment them? Or did they come from a trade show import that didn't have a workflow in place to route them? So this next report is looking for create date is in the last, and I have here 365, but you can do that by 90, 60, et cetera, if you want to break that down by month or quarter. And then similarly, last contacted is unknown and last activity date is unknown, where again, you can filter that by quarter. So So why are those important, right? Well, it's because no one wants to be left out in the lurch after they've reached out to you. Those 24 hours around a contact's first conversion are some of their most precious moments and when they're most open to you, and that's when you're top of mind with them. So missing out on communicating with contacts at these opportunities, it's going to be a helpful indication of whether you need to revisit your personas. Do you have CTAs in place that indicate what a contact is interested in? Do you have what you need to follow up with them? Now, bonus report here, if you have Marketing Hub Enterprise, your portal audit should definitely include a visit to your revenue attribution report. Again, thinking back to those KPIs, did you need to prove ROI or improve ROI for your trade show sign up or a new loyalty program that you started? Well, if you created a HubSpot campaign for that, you should see that broken out in your attribution report. If the numbers are too low, think about your different touch points. I've had some customers come through and they've said these numbers are too low. We'll go back and we realize they didn't tag their assets appropriately. Did they use a regular web page versus a landing page? That should have been a key indicator of value. Like I said, I had a customer that used this report as a launching pad for how they proceeded to manage their webinar reporting. They realized that they were missing a lot of their contacts and a lot of the value here. So they actually ended up diving into how they were tagging their deals and their contacts and adding them into static lists that they could then associate to campaigns. And then they started coming through into their revenue attribution report.
Okay.
And then of course, no audit of Marketing Hub is going to be complete without looking at email health, right? It's the very basis of the tool a lot of times. And I've been surprised by the number of customers that I've worked with who pull a new list for each email send, and they just prioritize open rates and click rates. So when we're organizing our content around the buyer journey, contacts are beginning to fall through the cracks. Now, email marketing is going to become an increasingly pay-to-play space. You've probably already seen your Gmails and your Outlooks ordered into different tabs. You have your primary, your social, and your promotion. So major email providers like Yahoo and Gmail are starting to filter emails to those various inboxes, to spam inboxes, when they go unread over a period of time. Think about your own inbox habits. How often do you check junk or spam? I very rarely, if ever, do. And it's only because I work in marketing that I know I need to go in there. The reality is that most users who don't work in email marketing are going to rarely, if ever, check that folder. That means once your emails start going unread, then eventually moving to spam, you stand the chance of never appearing in that inbox again. Now, a teammate of mine attended several talks from Gmail product managers and engineers last year at several webinars, and relayed that Google is moving very quickly to monetize their inboxes. Again, you've probably already seen some of the ads at the top there. And then in the next few years, they're going to get more aggressive at filtering out email they feel their contacts don't find valuable and replacing that space with ads. The good news is, I don't say that to scare you. I tell you because there's still time to get ahead. So in your portal audit, you want to review not just the health of your email overall, but the health of your tiers of contacts. The most engaged versus the average engaged versus the disengaged. And when you run the averages against your tiers, you're going to start seeing larger trends that are specific to your contacts, your business, that you can use to inform your re-engagement strategy. Ask yourself now if you have workflows in place to reach out to unengaged contacts via email or via a sales rep task. Like we were talking about earlier, lead score. Is your lead score aligned with the email health that you're seeing here? I'm Some people will say that email marketing is dying, but I believe it is very much the opposite. I think it's reinventing itself because email is a steal when it comes to ROI, right? As most email service providers don't charge by the email send, it's by contacts or by features. So free influence on social media is already pretty much gone with influencers and paid advertising. And SEO is losing its impact as well. Obviously still relevant, but those ads are starting to take up more of this space above the fold in search results. So it makes sense that email is about to move the same way. So it's really imperative that you audit your tiers of engagement to make sure you have a communication plan in place to keep you above the fold. I know that there are probably a lot of questions here in particular, so I'm just going to ask that you hold ones about email until after the meeting. We are going to follow up with a survey, I believe, right, to pick topics for the next hub. So if you want one about email deliverability, let them know.
And breathe.
Yep, I'm going to take a sip of water. That was a lot. But reporting aside, hopefully now you feel that you have your hypothesis that you started in with confirmed, and maybe even some new information or trends uncovered. Like, hey, I didn't realize this page was garnering so many views. Why don't we have a form there? Or I didn't realize that we shared 2 CTAs across all of our emails because our campaigns aren't breaking out in our revenue attribution report as expected, right?
Right. So now we're at that point. We've gone through this whole exercise. Now that you know where your data stands. Oh, David, industry stats still show emails done correctly can return over $40 per dollar spent. That is value. I mean, oh, that's heckin' cheaper than anything else. Thank you.
The key word there is done right.
well, it's a work in progress, isn't it? Every time. But so we've gone through this and now, say you know where your data stands. Now, what do you want to do about it? So what we do is we take a look at Hubspot assets and we think about where are they and where they're not serving the contacts we found in earlier reports, which loops back to your email comment. David, when done right. Yeah, the opt-in list is big. Just in subtext to all this, the email conversation that Savannah started that we're pausing on. We know first party data is going to be super important next year if Google gets their stuff together and kills the cookie.
Yeah, gonna make us pay for everything.
Literally, that is what they've been trying to do since they incorporated.
Years, for decades. But on the subject of content, right? So obviously we do need to do a content audit. And having these numbers ahead of time helps you, as you're going through your content audit, realize where they're important. And on the subject of content, I just want to refer back to the pillar pages that I mentioned very, very briefly, very, very quickly earlier. Now, when running that content audit, think about it in terms of organizing it as pillar pages. A lot of my customers aim to churn out content regularly, a la early 2000s bloggers. And for those who are in a fast-paced, information-based market, that works. You have a think tank in DC who can write about each new bill that's under consideration or the latest law that the Supreme Court is reviewing. A lot of content opportunities. My customer who manufactures a 6-figure AC cooling unit, not so much content to write there. So I see a lot of customers get hung up on the amount of content they have, but it's truly in the quality and aligning content to the stages of your flywheel and your customer journey. Now, thanks. I found this really interesting statistic from the 2021 demand gen report that I wanted to share with you guys. As your portal audit will reveal the various touch points that your contacts are having successful conversions on. So I'm curious, definitely do engage here, right? Put it in chat. How many pieces of content do you think are typically consumed prior to somebody making their first purchasing decision? So we would say 44%. Yep.
Alex says 13. Wow, good for you.
There's a lot of content.
That's a lot of content.
So surprisingly, 44%. I also thought that it would have been higher. Surprisingly, 44% of contacts who are looking to actually start and make the purchasing decision have engaged with about 3 to 5 pieces of content. 10% have engaged with more than 7 pieces of content. So it really gives us an idea of we don't have as much ramp time with our content to make an impact as we wanted to. So we need to make sure that every little bit counts. And again, that it's trackable and useful. Now, your HubSpot assets are there to help you track engagement with your content. You know, the HubSpot tracking code can track page visits. CTAs will help track clicks. Custom events can track when somebody's expanding the read more. And forms are going to help you gate valuable content, ebooks, graphs, right? But that's only going to be so relevant if we know what purpose the content that you've created is meant to serve to your customer. When auditing the content that Christina referenced, you want to do so with these questions in mind, right? So research your personas, or do you even have personas, right? You want to format preferences, know where they spend time, know who they trust, their challenges, the words, the language that they're using. That information can come from your traffic analytics reports and the conversion reports that you saw earlier. You know, what pages that they're converting on tells you a lot of what they're looking for, and making sure that you have content that serves that use. Then you want to map out your buyer's journey, right? So challenges that they have at each stage of the buying process. Refer back to our reports of when are contacts falling off your radar and onto your unengaged contact reports from earlier. Now, during that content audit, find gaps. You know, what content do you already have across the journey, or what content is so broad that it's not specific enough to your visitor's use case or to their needs. And in that, you can always repurpose content, but I would recommend prioritize missing content, because missing content is you don't have any SEO around it. You are missing entire areas for people to realize that they have a pain point that you can solve for them. And of course, last, when you find that missing content, you have to create it. So I wanted to bring up this visual of all the different ways that we can share content as marketers. Some of those, like videos and podcasts, they're not going to be in HubSpot, right? But think about where and how we can group them, like checklists, guides, trends. Those can all be behind a form on the landing page. Now, consider how you organizing your content, not just by theme, but also by type. You know, can you easily report on what type of content is resonating the most? What content users are interacting with most at various points in the flywheel or in their journey? Knowing when your contacts are converting, you can begin to see what content holds most value for them. Because we know not all content is created equal or in equal amounts of time. Some pieces definitely require more of your time and effort. So you need to be sure that you're seeing a return of value on that investment of your time.
Yeah, I think that's so important, Savannah. And we've seen that with so many of our clients, where sometimes it's just like a small thing that they didn't even spend a lot of time on that gets that sort of virality and gets the most bang for your buck. Okay, everyone. Well, that does it pretty much for today's. We'll get back to Q&A in a second. I did just want to let you know our past events, in case you missed any of them, are available at events.hubspot.com/Los-Angeles, or you can just search for Los Angeles there. Our three most recent are automating the most boring parts of sales from last month, account-based marketing from May, and all about flywheels from March. We will soon be announcing our next event topic, but for that we need your help. So, Christina, do you mind putting this? I can do it.
I can,
no, I
oh,
can't
you
do it.
got it? I was gonna do it.
No, if you can do it, that'd be great. This survey link is just a quick survey, and one of the most important things to us on there obviously is what parts of these presentations are helpful for you and all of that. We also ask for your suggestions for what content you want to see in the future. That's how these topics come to be. They're not, we don't pull them out of a hat. We respond to what you want more information on. So if you could take a moment to do this survey for us, and Christina put that link in the chat so you can just click it. And I will hand it back over to Savannah with a very heartfelt thank you, and to answer anybody's questions. I know there was some chat going on in the chat, which I think has all been responded to, but I wasn't following as closely. So if anybody has any more questions about anything we covered, it was a lot. I feel like I want to flop down like that and give you from earlier.
Light it up. I'm ready. And if you don't have questions now, as it always happens, I always have it after I hang up. Just shoot them our way.
Yep.
Happy to have Savannah respond to any of your questions that you have after this webinar ends. But like Latal said, there was a lot in here. We'll share the deck with you and wish you well on cleaning and organizing your life and making it better.
Yes.
If everybody found those reports helpful, I think the biggest question that always comes through in portal audits that I run with my customers are the dreaded question of, I don't know what I don't know. And so if you feel like that's a question that you're asking yourself ahead of your audit, this is a really great process to go through to start to familiarize yourself with what you do know, and tying, again, those back into your KPIs. So nothing feels uncomfortable or strange.
Yeah. So good luck, Bethany. Here's your cheat sheet. Well, you're very welcome. Okay, so I think I'm going to call it. It's very Bueller on the chat right now. So I think it's safe to say everybody is just as overwhelmed with all the information as we are. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Cool.